Welcome back to the channel. Today, what I'm going to do is walk you through how I develop a print in the darkroom. All right, so here are the different negatives that I shot when I was in Vegas. So as you can see, I got the contact sheet and then the actual negatives right behind it. That way it's hopefully easy to find the negative you're looking for. And right now I'm sitting on so many negatives that I want to print. It's really just a matter of issue of time and not being able to get to everything. But I was really intrigued by this negative right here, and I think I'm going to work through and do a fine print with that one. Hopefully if everything goes good. So that's what we're going to start with. I'm actually going to do something a little bit different with this video. I'm really grateful that I was able to reach over 1,000 subscribers as quickly as I did. So as a little give back, I'm going to, after this image is all printed, archivally printed, matted, and ready to go, I'm going to actually give it away to somebody. So I typically, once I get this all worked out, I have so many negatives that I print. I usually only do like an addition of 5 from the negative onto fiber-based print, onto fiber-based paper, sorry. I am going to be printing this on Arista paper. Now I haven't used this paper in a while, and I actually wanted to use Foma Brom variant, and it was sold out everywhere. So I'm pretty sure that the Arista brand fiber-based is the same. We're gonna go ahead and give it a try. I've used the Arista in the past, and it's a really lovely paper. I like it a lot. So what I'm going to actually do is do my work prints on this Arista RC paper, and then I'm gonna transfer, once I get the print map and everything done, then I'm gonna transfer that to the final print on fiber-based paper. Then the developer that I'm using is going to be Ansco, yeah, it's called Ansco 130. So this is a developer that you have to make from scratch. And it's I really like the developer for the main reason is it lasts forever. So I reuse the developer constantly. So I have 1 liter that I typically use, and then I have a 2nd liter that I refill with fresh developer so after the end of the printing session, it's, a lot of it gets transferred over into the stop and you lose some of that initial liter. So then I take the fresh developer and top that off and then use that as required. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I got the negative in the carrier, but I need to set the enlarger height. And I know this is gonna be a 7x7 print, and from experience, I know it's about 55.5 on this one. I'm using a 105mm Nikon or Nikkor lens, and then I'm going to set my easel here to 7, 7, 7, and 7. And I'm just going to go ahead and get this focused. So I'm just going to use a regular, it's a grain finder. This one's a Peak, and pop it on there. Can help too to just open the lens wide open and focus, and then stop it back down. Then we just want to make sure everything's framed upright and looks good. All right, so now everything is set to go. I'm going to turn the white light back off, and then I usually start with about a 2 to 2.5 filter. We'll go 2.5 on this one. So this is Caesar's Palace, and there's these 2 bigger towers and then this little smaller one. So what I'm going to do is try and this is my focal point. So it's a real nice highlight, and you always want to start, whenever you're printing, you want to start with the highlights. You want to print for the highlights and then adjust the contrast for the blacks and the shadows. So like I said, I'm going to start about a 2.5 filter on this. I think that's going to work really good from, you know, my past experience of printing negatives like this. So I want to get the exposure that's going to give me a really nice white highlight in this area that I want to start with. So to do that, let me pop the lights on here for a sec. To do that, well, there's a bunch of different ways you can do that. What I'm going to do today to kind of show you a really easy way, let me see if I can get this lens back on there. There we go. Is I made this, and this is actually from that book, Way Beyond Monochrome. Again, pop a light on here. And what it does is, I made this out of mat board. In that book, there's actually plans to make this. I believe he uses like a plastic or something. I didn't have plastic or the tools to do it, but I had a bunch of mat board. So mat board, and I think this is like old school like framers tape is what I used. And so the way this works is I'll cut a piece of 8 by 10 paper in half, and I put this in there, and then I fold this over, and it allows me to do a test strip in a certain spot. And I'll show you what that looks like here. So I'm gonna take gaffer's tape. I'll just leave that light on for now, and hopefully we can kind of see this. Let me turn this one off. No, we're gonna turn them all off. Yeah, there we go. So using this, right where I want that highlight, I'm going to take and put this right there. And then I've always got gaffer's tape laying around. I'm gonna tape this in place. That way when I'm, adjusting it, things aren't getting moved around on me. And this thing's been taped so many times. There's tape all over this, and it's just starting to look kind of like a wreck, but it still works really good. And specifically for this, if there's a specific highlight or a specific area you're trying to do a test print of, now I can put that test strip in here, flip it over, do the exposure, open it back up, move it down, do the exposure. And so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get that highlight dialed in. And so this is where we're gonna start. All right, so I'm gonna take a sheet of the RC Arista paper and cut it in half. And if you want, you could cut it in smaller strips. My whole thing with RC paper is I pretty much use it for work prints. I do some final prints on it, but most of the stuff is, for me personally, RC paper is kind of a means to an end, so I'm pretty liberal with it. But if you want to be more sparing, feel free. So, put half that back in the box. Put that away. And then I'm just gonna do a series of let's see, it would be like 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, and so on. And with this thing, it's pretty cool because you can just set it in here, and these little tabs kind of tell you where to move it, in the next. So I'm gonna close that down. See if I can find my foot switch. So that's gonna be 1 second. Then I'm simply going to adjust this down to the next stop. And this one's gonna be 2. I'm doing 1 second because I know it's a small print. The enlarger head's really close to the paper. And I want to make sure that I am, getting the little subtle differences between the exposures. So this one's gonna be 3 seconds. Go 4. So it's very much like a normal test strip, you know, testing for the highlights, except for I'm isolating one specific highlight that I want. So this is gonna be 6 seconds. Now hopefully I get it in these, because it looks like I'll be between 1 and 7 seconds. But I think I'll be good. But otherwise you could do 2, 4, 6, 8, you know, 10, 12. I just think that it's gonna be in this area because it's night images tend to have a little bit shorter exposures just because there's not as much light in most areas. So. And then the last one, so it'll be 7 seconds. Can't find the foot switch. There we go. I'm gonna go ahead and get that in the developer, and then we'll take a look at it. All right, so once I got this printed, and one thing I do want to note, so with the RC paper, when I'm working through these test strips and test prints, I'm using the Anskill 130, but I only develop for 1.5 minutes with RC, then I do a normal stop bath, and then I just use a fixer bath that's it's pretty well used, but again, I'm not trying to archivally process these, I'm just trying to make them kind of live long enough for their useful life. So I just do a single fixer bath for 1 minute, and then I wash it briefly, and then I'm gonna squeegee it off, and then I use just a hair dryer to dry it for the dry down, and that way I can really evaluate the highlights on here. So now I'm just evaluating the test strip, and what I'm looking for, again, I'm focusing on the highlights, and it looks like we captured it in the first strip here. It looks like between 4, 5, 6, and so I think right around 5 seconds. Yeah, so let me see if I can show you this. And the other thing I will do is I'll take this out of the darkroom and look at it in different lighting, because sometimes just in here under these, they're like a tungsten-y type light. It can look a little bit different, you know, in daylight, and I'll kind of mix the lighting up a little. So it really helps to dry this down and just take a look at it. Like I said, I'm looking at about between 4 and 5, and I also think I'm gonna add a little bit more contrast. And so from here, I'm just gonna do a full test print and take a look and see how that looks. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and just do a full print. I upped the filter to a 3.5, and I'm dropping everything. I upped the filter to a 3.5, and I think with the RC paper, I'm probably gonna even end up going a little bit further. But you kind of want to edge into the contrast. So I'm going to do a full print. And again, you don't have to, what am I doing here? There it is. You could definitely do smaller test strips, but I like to be able to see the whole print as I'm kind of working into it. And it's really kind of valuable to have that whole picture for me. So here we go. And again, this is a filter 3.5, 6 second exposure. So I'm gonna put this in the developer, and then we'll dry it and take a look. All right, so here's the first work print, and it's really looking pretty good. I think I might, well, I wanna squeegee this off and dry it before I make any judgments. But right off the bat, I think, so everything tonally wise is good. There's detail in everything. The highlights are starting to get a little blown out right here. I think that's because I upped the contrast a little, but my focus still is the highlights on this building. And I think I'm actually gonna pump up the contrast a little bit more. I want a little bit more pump out of it, but first let me get this squeegeed off and dried. Yeah, so my thoughts are to dry this off. And then what I like to do is, well, I'm gonna kind of judge the overall contrast. I'm gonna dry this off, take a look at it, and then, you know, kind of decide where I want to go from here. But before I dry this, I can kind of tell I want a little bit more punch out of it. So let me see. So everything looks pretty darn good, but I'm gonna end up in the contrast. I think I'm gonna go about another stop, and then in doing that, I'm going to also have to just increase the exposure slightly. If I'm given more filtration, that I do have to give it a little bit more exposure as well. So you'll kind of have to adjust, you know, accordingly. And then because I'm gonna increase the contrast, I think I'm gonna have to burn down some of these highlights just a little. But first, I'm gonna dry it off, and then I will definitely make a judgment call on, you know, if I wanna go a full stop, a half stop, or where I wanna go from there. So I'm gonna go ahead and dry this one off and take a look. Okay, so this was the 6 seconds at f11 with a filter 3.5. And you can notice I wrote that on there with a Sharpie. That's once it's dried down. And I think what I'm gonna do is just increase the contrast by about a stop, or by about a grade, to 4.5, and leave the exposure at 6 seconds and kind of see where that lands me. And then my feeling is I'm gonna have to just make kind of a burning card and burn down some of these other highlights. Because my focus is on that center pillar, so that's where I'm really focusing all my attention at this point. I really want that to glow and pop. And you'll kind of find that when you're trying to figure out the contrast of a print, that when you get it right, it will a black and white print will just glow. And so it's really, really subtle changes, and that's what I'm working on right now, trying to get the blacks just perfect, trying to get the highlights just perfect. And I think I can get a little bit more contrast out of this, and then I'm gonna have to burn down a few of those highlights to compensate. So let's do another print. This is filter 4.5 with 6 seconds. There we go, let's get this processed. All right, so this is the second full print, full work print, and right away I can tell that I love the contrast of this focal point that I'm going for. So I know that this is the contrast that I want, and as expected, these other highlights started to kind of blow out because I'm really kind of jacking up the contrast, but you know, I like punchy prints. So I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna take care of that. Because again, my focus is here, and so what I'm gonna do is use a low grade, let me make sure you can see this, yeah. A low grade filter and burn this down. But again, first I'm gonna squeegee this and dry it off and really evaluate it. And then I'm gonna basically draw a print map on this one to what my plans are for mostly burning. I don't think I'm gonna have to do any dodging necessarily. So let's go ahead and get that dried and looked at. So again, you wanna be able to dry these. I do have a microwave in here too. You can throw them in the microwave once you've kind of squeegeed them and got a bunch of the water off. I just find with RC paper, it literally takes like 30 seconds with a hair dryer, and they're pretty good to go. And again, I don't intend to do anything with these except for mark them up and use them as a tool. So the processing of them is really, really quick. It's 1.5 minutes the developer, 15 seconds in the stop, and right into the fix. So here is the second test print, and I've dried it and taken a really good look at it outside the darkroom. And again, I love the contrast in the middle. That is my, sorry, I'm hand holding this. That is my focus of the moment, and I really want that to glow. And I'm gonna go ahead and kind of mark this one up as to where I need to burn down the other highlights. And I'm gonna use a kind of split grade printing. So I'm gonna burn down some, like the highlight here where it's blown out with a 0 filter, some of this, do a little edge burn to bring the focus back into the center. And I'm just gonna use a normal Sharpie for that. But right off the bat, I can see I need to burn this. There's a little highlight here that's blowing out. This for sure, kind of this whole square here is getting blown out. Down in here, same on this side. I want to burn these. This is really hard to do like this, guys, sorry. I'm gonna burn this whole section down a little, and then I'm gonna edge burn here a little, and then this too. Anything that's really bright and at the edges, I wanna make sure that I burn down, and then I think I'm just gonna do a kind of an edge burn where it's needed. That looks good, but right in here, and then definitely in here, I gotta burn it down a little bit more. So that's gonna be the basic, and what I'm gonna, the basic print map. So this is gonna be my standard exposure, and then I'm gonna make cut some holes in a card to burn that stuff down with a grade 00 filter. And that's gonna mostly affect the highlights and not deepen these blacks anymore, because I don't want this to get any deeper. I like that I can see the detail in there. I like that I can see all the detail, but I just wanna kind of bring the focal point back to the center there. All right, now to make a burning card for this, I'm going to just stack, this is just some negatives and a print box to get a little bit of height up here. So this is about, you know, the height that I want to burn at. And then I'm going to look at my print map again. I'm just going to draw in here where I actually want to burn, so I can get a real precise burn. And then I'm going to cut this out with a razor blade. So I want to be real precise with this. And I'm just going to draw each one of these little areas. So there's this, and so on and so forth. All right, so here's the card. So I went and I cut those out with a razor blade. So that's the area that I traced. And then I cut little pieces of that same cardstock and just tape them so I can flap that over. What this is gonna allow me to do is burn each area individually instead of trying to do it all at once, but yet still being very precise with it. So I can burn this one, flip it over, and burn this one, flip it, and so on and so forth. All right, now that I have the card that I'm gonna use to burn the actual highlights down, I need to determine the actual exposure. For that, I'm just gonna cut some smaller test strips. I'm gonna do a base exposure on them, and then burn in a couple different exposures with the 0 filter to just burn those highlights down. That way I can determine how long I actually need to burn those in for. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and yeah. All right, so now I got a real small piece because I'm just trying to get an idea of what I want to do with how much I need to burn those highlights down. So I'm going to actually use an ND filter for the burn part. Just for the sake of time, I'm gonna keep this one at 6 seconds. So we're gonna go ahead, I got a filter of 4.5. So I'm gonna go 6 seconds, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I'm gonna put the ND filter in place. Find my card here. Turn this on for a quick second. Change the filter to a 00. And now I'm going to, and I'm just gonna do this with the metronome. So we're just gonna go ready and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that should be between 2 and 12 seconds of a burn on top of our base exposure. So let's go ahead and get this developed. All right, so here's the little test strip. And so then I'm just gonna go ahead and do that with the other areas that I wanna burn down. I'm not gonna walk you through each of these, but so this was 2, and it's kind of hard to see, but you can see there's a gradient that builds up. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I'm gonna dry this down and evaluate it. Let me see. And then I'm going to write on that second test print exactly how much time I'm gonna burn down each of those areas. So we'll go ahead and get that figured out. And once I have that done, we'll go and do a final, hopefully final print on the resin coated paper. And we can move over to doing our final actual prints. All right, so this is gonna be the print map, hopefully for a final print. I did a bunch of different little test exposures. I know it's gonna be really hard to see this because I use a black marker, but you can see it's pretty good in person, but on video, I'm not really sure. So I'm gonna add an additional 6 seconds, then with that same hole, burn for 16 seconds, going out, do a little edge burn there, burn in about 3 seconds for this one, about 6 seconds, and 6 seconds. A little edge burn and a little edge burn. Sounds complicated, it's really not, especially with the burn tool that I made. So all that is going to be done with a grade 00 filter. So I'm gonna do the base exposure and then do a series of burns. So hopefully you'll be able to see this and follow through, and hopefully this print turns out quite nice so we can transfer it over to the fiber-based paper. All right, so this does take a little bit of concentration to remember all these things, but otherwise I do pin this print map up kind of close to my light so that I can take a look at it if I need to. That way, just in case I forget, and plus I usually have music playing and it doesn't make it any easier. But here we go. Make sure everything's right. Give it 6 seconds for the base with a 4.5 filter. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're gonna put the filter in place. Should have probably just did that right away. There we go. Now I'm gonna switch to this burning card here. And now I'm just gonna open up these flaps when I need to. So I'm gonna start with this one. So this is going to be 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So that one's done. Now this one's, this little guy is 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Top part 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one was 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And there was a 12-second burn that I used. I'm gonna use my hand for down here. These lights down at the bottom so I'm gonna make this 12 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we had a 6-second edge burn. Let me double check that. Yeah, it was 6 seconds, 2, 2, and nothing, and 2. So we're gonna go 6 seconds on this side for the last just edge burns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it was 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and that should do it. So let's get this in the developer, and hopefully we got ourselves a final print that we can again transfer over to a very pretty fiber-based paper. So I'm really liking how this looks. Again, it has to dry down. So I will go ahead, squeegee it again, hit it with the hairdryer, then I'll go look at it under a few different lighting conditions to make sure that I'm happy with it. And it's at this point too, I'm gonna take a picture of this right here with my iPad. I had a couple questions with how I print in regards to, I was doing some behind the scenes on Instagram, and I typically do my last print map in a app called GoodNotes, and I'm kind of trying to refine it, but it's nice because I can take a picture of this, import it in there, and then draw all over it with different colors basically, and record the notes, and then I have a final print map. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a picture of this now, but again, this contrast for this paper and developer right now, the center part here, it just looks so good. It's just glowing, and this is still on RC paper, so I can't wait to transfer this over to fiber-based paper, and that's what we're going to do now. But I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of this with the iPad, and then do a little bit of math and figure out what I need to do to get this to a final print. So the next step was simply to transfer the settings from the resin coated paper over to the fiber-based paper. And to do that, I had watched a video by Tim Hall, and I will put the link in the description down below, but he goes through and explains how he translates from one paper to another. And to do it, essentially you contact print a step wedge. In this case, I had the TP 4x521. He uses a different one. I believe he made it, and there probably are better ones than the one that I used here. But essentially you want to, again, you want to print off the highlights, you want to expose for the highlights, and then adjust the contrast for the shadows. I don't know how good you're going to be able to see these here, but so this is the fiber-based paper, and this is the resin-coated paper. And basically, I came up with a standard of, for a grade 4 on the resin-coated paper, it would be the same as me printing with a filter 3 on the fiber-based paper, and a difference of roughly a stop. So it basically allows you to make a factor, and that allows you to adjust the exposure, and then you adjust the filter or the contrast, whatever you're using to control the contrast, the same from one paper to the next. So I know that that's probably a little bit confusing, but it's really pretty easy. And when you do this, you really get an idea of what's going on with the paper, because they really do differ from paper to paper quite a bit. So you can't just use the same settings from one to the next. You really have to make the adjustments. And so after this is done, I made a chart, and that way I can reference that, and I know that if I'm printing on this RC paper, I can transfer it over to the fiber-based paper with pretty good confidence. All right, now is the moment of truth. I've done the math, I've figured it out. I know exactly how I'm going to print on the fiber-based paper. Now, sometimes depending on the different batch of paper and stuff, you might have to make tweaks. This isn't going to be 100% exact science every time. But one thing I do want to note is I've mixed not all new fresh chemicals. I'm using the Ansco 130, but I developed the fiber-based paper for 3 minutes, but I mixed up fresh fix because I'm gonna print 5 of these. So like I said before, I'm gonna do an edition of 5 and that's it with this negative. And so I wanna make sure that it's archival. So I'm gonna do fresh fix, and then I also mixed up a hypo clear that I'm gonna soak the prints in before I do a wash, then a selenium toner for these prints, and then another hypo clear, and then another wash. And I do have the ND filter in because like the base exposure here is gonna be 13 seconds. So let's just get right to it and go for it. And this is at a 3.5 filter for 13 seconds base. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And we're gonna go to the 00 filter. And now, make sure I got this positioned correctly. Put the other card in play. Toss that one aside. Go up real nice and tight. Open that window. And then this is going to be 1001, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Close that flap. And the little one's, so I had to think, I forgot what I was doing. Then the little one's gonna be 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, bring it up. Close that one. The top one's gonna be 3 seconds. 1000, 1, 2, 3, bring it up. Now this one's only 1.5 seconds, so this one's about the trickiest. So we're gonna go down 1.5. Then we gotta burn this for 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we have a series of 1 second, a 1 second edge burn on the bottom. Let me take a quick look. It's 1, 3, 1, and 3. All right, so we go 1001, 1001, 1001, 1002, 3. That was pretty bad, but that looks good. And then we'll go 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And I think that does it. So we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put this through the developer, the stop, the 2 fixes, and we will take a look. So I'm the developer for 3 minutes. That looks pretty darn good. I'm pretty happy with that at first light, but of course, let me get it up on the board here and take a closer look. So I am really happy with how this looks. That middle column, the highlights just look amazing. The whole picture is just kind of glowing right now. So I want to get this washed. I'm going to actually tone this one, let it dry, take another look, but I think this is our final print. I'm going to print 4 more of these, and that will be the edition. But yeah, I can't wait to see this dry mounted in a mat. It's going to look just incredible. So I'm going to, a couple more steps and we'll be all finished up. So the last thing that I had to do is I selenium toned this print, diluted 1 to 9 for 2 minutes. then put it in another just sodium sulfite hypochlorine bath, and then I washed it for 60 minutes. And after that, I did a little tiny bit of print spotting, because as meticulous as I am, it never ceases to amaze me how I can somehow manage to get dust still on my negatives. So I had to do a little bit of print spotting, and then I cut the mat board and mounted it. And I did use photo corners for this one. Generally, if I go over this print size, then I start to dry them out. But if I can get away with using a more archival method like photo corners, that way it's not adhered to anything, and you can also always go back in and you could re-selenium tone. You could do a lot of different things with it a lot easier. So I really want to thank you for your continued support on my channel, and that's kind of why I'm doing this giveaway. I thought it would be cool to show you exactly how I printed this, and for someone to be able to actually hang this on their wall. So here is the final print. It is mounted with Rising Museum Mount mat board. It is one of my favorite mat boards ever. It's just a really beautiful cotton finish. But here's the final print. So I made one that I'm giving away, 4 that I'm selling. So if you are interested and want to support my channel more, that would be amazing. They are for sale over on my website, and I'll put the link in the description below. And if anybody has a source for Rising Museum Mount mat board, please leave me a comment down below on where I can get this, because the supplier that I purchased this from, unfortunately, amazing place, but they went out of business this year. So I used this is just the regular, I think it's a white, and then for lift prints and warmer tone prints, I use the warm white. And they're beautiful mat boards. They're really reasonably priced. At least they were when I could buy them. So anyway, I will pick the winner of this print on May 30th. And like I said, you can get more entries to win this print in the link below. So if this is something that you really want, definitely check that out. And I look forward to making more videos. It's been really fun. I've been learning a lot. Trying to make these videos in the darkroom, not always the easiest thing to do, and it's just been enjoyable. So I hope that somebody out there is learning something from them, and I look forward to making the next one. Please hit the subscribe button, comment below, and we'll see you next time.